Hello everyone, welcome back to the science class once again. Thank you all for watching my previous videos and an additional thank you for staying home. So what did we discuss in the last day? We discussed about the resultant force. I hope you all have understood about the resultant force. So today we are going to discuss about an unbalanced force and a balanced force. Okay. So let us start with the balanced force now. What is the balanced force? When the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, the forces are said to be balanced forces. When the resultant of all the forces acting on a body, okay, when their resultant is zero, then that kind of force is known as a balanced force. As an example, when can you say that the resultant of the force can be zero? It is only possible in case of subtraction. Right now? Yes. And when is that subtraction possible? When the forces are acting in opposite direction. Correct? To each other. Then only a subtraction is possible. Because in the previous example, what did I show you? In first example, the resultant force was 110 Newton. In the second example, the resultant force was only what? It was 10 Newton. Right? So how the 10 Newton came? The 10 Newton came from the subtraction of the forces acting on that particular body, because the direction of the forces were opposite, right? So in a balanced force, when the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, then only the forces are said to be balanced forces. As an example, let us take a table. On the table, let us put a big box. Now, you just say your brother or sister that I will pull the box with a force. You will also pull a box with a similar kind of force that I am exerting on while pulling the box. Let us just assume that you are applying a force of 10 Newton from one side and you are pulling it. Sorry, you are pushing it. Okay, let us assume that not pulling, it's pushing. You are pushing it, that box. You just say your brother or sister or your family member to push the box from the opposite side, okay, with the same force which you are exerting. You are also applying a force of 10 Newton, you're pushing the box. Say your family member to pull the box from the opposite side by applying a 10 Newton of force. Do you think that the box is going to move? The box is not going to move. Why? Because the resultant force is zero in that case. You are applying force from one direction, okay? You are applying a force of 10 Newton. The other one is also applying a force of 10 Newton. What is 10 minus 10? It is 0. The resultant force here, it is what? It is 0. So which kind of force will it be? Since the magnitudes are same, it is an example of your balanced force. Do you think that the object is going to move? The object is not at all going to move, because the resultant force which is being applied on it is 0 only. Okay? So that is an example of your balanced forces. The balanced forces cannot set a stationary body into motion. The balanced forces cannot set a stationary body into motion. Just apply the example in this point, you can understand it. Second one, it cannot change the speed of a moving object. When a balanced force is applied on a moving object, it cannot change the speed of that moving object. Why? Because the resultant force is 0 only. No any additional force is being applied. Okay? That's why it cannot change the speed of a moving object. Next one, it may change the shape and size of that soft object. When you apply the balanced force, then there is a probability that the shape and size of that soft object might change. Okay? Then next comes unbalanced forces. What is an unbalanced force? When the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is not 0. Okay? When the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is not 0, then the forces are unbalanced forces. Okay? As an example, unbalanced force. Let us consider the same example. A table is there, a box is there. Okay? You are applying a force of 10 Newton in pushing it. Just assume that your family member is applying a force of 30 Newton. Now what will be the resultant force in this case? 30 Newton minus 10 Newton, it is equal to 20 Newton. Now this is the magnitude of the force is greater on this side. it is lesser in this side. The resultant force is 20 Newton. That means the side from which the greater magnitude of force is being applied, the box is going to move from that side only. That means the box is going to move on this side. Why? The resultant force is not 0 in this case. In this case, the resultant force is 20 Newton. Now the box is going to move with a force of 20 Newton now. So this is an example of your unbalanced force. Is it clear, everyone? Now the unbalanced forces can set a stationary object into motion. Apply this example to the first point. It can set a stationary object into motion. Second one, it can set a moving object at rest. It can bring a moving object to rest. Okay? Then third one, it can change the direction of motion. On the application of force, the direction of motion can change in case of unbalanced forces. But in case of balanced forces, it is not possible because their resultant force is completely 0. But in case of unbalanced forces, the resultant force is never 0. If the resultant force is 0, then there is no any unbalanced force. Clear, everyone? So I hope you have understood about a balanced force and unbalanced force. In the next video, we are going to talk about the various effects of forces. Till then, stay safe. Thank you.